Straight Shift with the Car Chick, the podcast that's all about cars, buying, selling, fixing, and driving, and sometimes running fast if you're the car chick. Now, here she is.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Straight Shift. My new video and podcasting studio is almost done, but I don't have the soundproofing up just yet. So please bear with me. I promise this is the last podcast that's going to have slightly echoey sound. I've got a guy who is going to give me for free 157 of those 12 by 12 inch sound dampening foam acoustic panels. I'm picking them up later today. I am so excited. He's going to save me like $500 in terms of building out my studio. So I'm really appreciative of that. So bear with me. The next podcast, I promise, will have much better quality sound. Today, I wanted to talk about online car dealerships. You may have seen a lot of ads recently on TV and radio and social media about these online-only car dealerships and car vending machines, which is a hilarious concept. They tout a really easy buying process, no haggle pricing, and delivery to your doorstep without ever having to set foot in a traditional dealership and hear that dreaded phrase, "So, what'll it take to get you into this car today, huh?" Gosh, who hates that, right? But the convenience of these direct-to-door dealerships, it's been really popular, especially with younger car buyers, because they've become accustomed to having everything delivered to their doorstep, thanks to companies like Amazon and HelloFresh, DoorDash, all those companies. And I admit, I am really spoiled by those companies as well. The Amazon ferry stops at my house practically every day, and I have fresh, healthy meals delivered every week because I just don't have time to cook and I'm terrible at it anyway. So I understand the convenience. If I even order something online from any company today, if it takes them more than 2 days to get it to my front door, I get really pissed because the Amazon ferry has me so spoiled. So I understand the business model of these new online-only car dealerships and the convenience and the not having to deal with that frequently unpleasant experience that you get when you set foot onto a traditional car lot. But buying a used car completely sight unseen, that's a little different than buying, a set of wireless headphones or having food delivered to your doorstep. Buying a used car is really risky as it is, but buying one completely sight unseen without ever being able to see it, touch it, or have it inspected before you make that buying decision adds a much higher level of risk and a certain amount of hassle in and of itself. If these companies were dealing in new cars and having a new car delivered to your doorstep, that's no big deal. I do that all the time with my clients. I have new cars delivered to their doorstep sight unseen. I have used cars delivered to their house sight unseen frequently too, but it's not sight unseen for us because I have an inspector go out and physically inspect that used car before we make that buying decision. So we know exactly what we're going to get when it ends up on my client's doorstep. Because those dealers that I buy from have a physical lot and they let me go out there or send my guys out there to do those inspections. These online dealers and vending machines, they don't have that. And that is where the problem lies, in my opinion. And I am not knocking these companies at all. As an entrepreneur myself, I applaud their innovative business model. It is definitely the direction that every type of shopping is going in our society. But as a professional car buyer and knowing the true condition of used cars on the market, especially today, I have my concerns. So I have done a lot of research on these companies, not just because I frequently get news outlets and, companies calling me for my opinion when they're writing articles about them. And I've had my clients and other prospective clients ask my opinion about these. But I researched them because, quite frankly, I wanted to know, hey, is this a potential source of cars? Are these dealerships that I could potentially work with to source used cars for my clients? Because that would be great. They have a lot of inventory out there to the point where they are actually causing a lot of problems for more traditional car dealerships because now they're buying in such volume and they're buying their cars from a lot of the same places that your regular car dealerships are. They're buying them from the auctions, at least the auctions they have access to. Franchise dealerships have access to internal and closed auctions, so they get first dibs on the really good stuff before the cars become available to any type of independent dealerships. But even at these big independent auctions, these guys are buying in such volume that it's making it harder for the traditional dealerships to get a lot of these cars at decent prices, because these other online dealerships are driving the used car prices way up on the wholesale market. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about how these online car dealerships work so that you understand, what the process is and what the potential risks and challenges are if you decide to take that route. What you generally do is you go onto one of their websites and shop for a car, just like you would a traditional dealership's website, or even looking on, AutoTrader or Cars.com. If you find a car that you like, you've got to create an account first, typically, and then you have to actually order that car. Prices aren't negotiable, but a lot of these dealerships don't typically have a dealer dock fee, so that can save you a few $100 right there. Almost all traditional car dealerships, unless it's a small mom and pop independent shop, will charge a dock fee, and that will vary anywhere from, a couple $100 in states that cap that fee by law. The dealers are not legally allowed to charge more than that, up to, $800, even $900 in states like Virginia and North Carolina and Florida, where it's not capped and they can charge whatever the heck they want. So that can save you a lot of money. However, there's usually typically a delivery charge unless you happen to live in one of their geographic areas that has a physical distribution center, or one of their little vending machines that you might see driving by on the freeway. Then they might, if you fall into that narrow geographic area, you might get it for free. But typically you're going to pay a few $100 in transportation to have that car delivered to you. It's not like Amazon Prime where it's delivered free. Then you have to get your financing together. And if you have a vehicle that you're going to trade in, they will take your vehicle on trade. You have to fill out an additional form on their website, and then they will give you a virtual appraisal for that. Now, because they're not getting to see your used car either, they're going to give you a pretty low trade-in number for it, because they have to hedge their bets and mitigate their risk of, okay, well, if we get this used car back and it's not what you said it was, and we're now going to get a few $1,000s less for it, either selling it on our website, or more likely they just take these cars to auction and sell them wholesale. So expect a lowball offer from these companies, because they haven't been able to see and touch your car. Now, then you have to get your financing together. If you're paying cash, then that makes it easy. You just get a certified check like you would with any dealer. You can apply for financing on their website and go through one of their lenders, just like with a traditional dealer, and they should have some good relationships. Or you can choose to get a loan, of course, through your bank, and just go through a few more steps in the process to make that happen. But that's going to be true if you bring your own financing to a traditional dealership. So far, it's not all that different from the traditional car buying process, except that you haven't been able to see the car yet. You haven't been able to test drive it. Now, that's kind of the critical step in the car buying process, is to actually go and physically touch and smell and drive and inspect that used car yourself. Even with a new car, you should at least have driven that make and model and trim level car before you decide. You may not drive the exact one that you're buying. Some people insist on doing that. It's really important to them to drive the actual car they're going to be purchasing. That's no problem. But in this situation, you're not going to be able to test drive that car before you have to go through the complete buying process. And if you are securing a loan, now they've hit your credit. They've put the documents together, so you have a valid loan for that car. Then you have to upload a bunch of documents to them. They're going to need your license and insurance and your registration if you're trading in, all the same things that a normal dealer would need. And when I go through this with my clients, they have to send me those documents as well, so that I can facilitate putting that paperwork together. And they will take a deposit to hold that car for you until all the contracts get signed. And that's usually $500. And again, this is very similar to a traditional dealership. If you're buying that car offline, which is what I do and what I recommend everybody does, most dealerships will take a $500 deposit to hold that car. until you just get the financing and logistics put together. The cool thing about these online dealerships is you can sign all of the paperwork electronically. I do that with my clients as well on my paperwork. Some traditional dealerships can do that, some cannot. Most of them kind of haven't gotten on board with the technological bandwagon yet to do that, but some of them have, and I have seen it done with certain dealers. So you sign all the paperwork online, which is very cool. And what they do is they hold the DMV paperwork. They're able to do the DMV paperwork for you, just like a traditional dealer in most cases. Sometimes they can't do that, and that is dependent on the laws in your home state. Some states will not let them do that, and you have to actually go in, take the paperwork yourself, go to the DMV yourself, and register the car in person. I hate those states. That's just really not nice. I think Kentucky is one of them, and there's a couple others. But for the most part, in most states, they should be able to do the DMV paperwork for you. But be sure you check on that, because if you have to go do the DMV paperwork yourself, you need to know that to factor that into your schedule, because that's going to take all day. Then once all the contracts are executed, they will schedule the delivery of your car to you. Some cases you can go to their distribution center and pick the car up. Again, if you're in the local area, or if you want to fly to the local area and pick it up yourself. But most people are doing this because they want the car delivered to them. That's the whole shtick of convenience. It usually takes anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks for that transportation to happen, because they have to arrange with a transport company, et cetera, and so forth. And so that just takes a little bit of time to get it to you. Here's kind of where they are trying to mitigate that risk. Most of them give you anywhere from 3 to 7 days from the date that the car is delivered to you, when it's dropped off, not from the date you sign the paperwork, but from the date it's actually dropped off, to either return or exchange the vehicle, or a set number of miles. Typically, they'll give you anywhere from, you can put 100 to up to 400 miles on the car within that 3 to 7 day window. If you put more miles on it, then they're going to charge you usually around $1 or so a mile for that extra mileage. And I don't blame them for that. They're trying to deter people from using this as a way to rent a car cheaply. And traditional dealers have had this problem over the years, and that's why a lot of dealerships no longer have that 3-day right of, canceling the contract and being able to return the car. Because what was happening was people were buying a new car on Friday, taking it for some fancy, road trip, romantic weekend, and then bringing it back on Monday and being like, I want to cancel my contract. And now they've put, 1,000 miles on the car and, driven it to, some exotic location and then think they're going to take it back. And so the car dealers went to the state lawmakers in most states and said, we're done with this. So that's why the 3-day right of rescission contract cancellation laws don't usually apply to cars, because people abused that, and therefore they got that law changed. Here, they're still letting you drive the car. You just, can't take it very far. You're basically doing an extended test drive, and they do allow you to take it to your mechanic for that inspection. You just can't modify the car. If you get into an accident within that window and the car is damaged, guess what? You can no longer return it. You can't really blame them for these policies. They have to protect themselves as well. But my biggest issue is that you don't get to test drive the car, see the car, and get a pre-purchase inspection on it before making that buying decision and going ahead and having your credit hit and signing all the paperwork. This is a pretty big hassle and a potential negative impact to your credit just to test drive a car. Now, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about, some of the risks and some of the things that, I would be looking for normally in a used car before we make that buying decision. That might be reasons why you would reject the car that gets delivered to you. So I'm going to be right back after this. Do you hate car shopping? Do you worry about being taken advantage of or about finding the right car at a great price? Buying a car can be a frustrating and time-consuming experience. But what if you could get a great deal without having to do a ton of research, without having to haggle, and without the fear of buying a lemon? You can. As your personal car shopper, the Car Chick will help you pick the perfect car based on your unique lifestyle, budget, and personality. She'll handle all of the legwork and negotiating for you. All you have to do is sign the papers and take the keys. It's that easy. To learn how the Car Chick can save you time, money, and hassle on your next car purchase, give us a call at 704-248-8706. That's 704-248-8706. Or visit us on the web at thecarchick.com.
Ah, the Car Chick is back for more Straight Shift.
Welcome back to the Straight Shift. We are talking about those online-only car dealerships and car vending machines and how that process really works and why I have some issues with it and why I don't do business with these companies, even though they have a very innovative business model. And that reason is you cannot touch, drive, or inspect that used car before you commit to the buying process, before you get the money together. If you're financing it, you have to go ahead and get that loan and sign all the paperwork with the bank, and your credit gets hit with this before you buy the car. So they get the car to you, and then you have time to do that. But with used cars, the quality of used cars out there really varies significantly. And that's true at a traditional dealership. It's true with the online dealership. And even within these online-only dealerships, the quality of the cars that they carry can vary dramatically. And I've looked at about 6 of these different online car dealerships, and I have sampled different cars in their inventory. I have probably looked at over 200 different used cars across these different online dealerships to get an idea of what is the quality of car that they're buying. What's the history on these cars? Where did they get it? And, are these good cars, or are they buying the leftover junk from the auctions? And the answer to that depends. I have seen everything from cars that look pretty good. It would be a car that I would normally very much consider for my clients if the process were compatible with my process. And some of them have had structural frame damage to them. So just like with buying any used car, you have to research that car, look at the history of it, and figure out, what kind of life did it have before it ended up on this used car lot or on this used car website. You have to take the quality with a grain of salt, because obviously not everything shows up on a Carfax report. Many of these online dealerships do provide a Carfax report. Some provide an auto check instead, which I don't like nearly as well, but auto check is getting a lot better, so better than nothing. But obviously the history report never tells the full story, because a lot of damage can happen and not end up on that history report, which is why I preach that you've got to get a pre-purchase inspection on a used car, because even the most detailed Carfax reports don't tell the full picture. They don't always report accidents, and they don't tell you necessarily what the cosmetic condition of the car is. They don't tell you if there's a whole bunch of scratches and chips and scrapes and dings, hail damage on the hood and the roof. Doesn't tell you if the interior has been beat up because the person ate in their car all the time, or they smoked in their car, or they had kids grinding Cheetos and fish crackers into the upholstery in the back. Those are all things that can happen to a used car and affect the condition of it. Now, when I've been looking at a lot of these cars, a lot of them that I saw had branded titles. And I've talked about branded titles before in previous podcasts when I've talked about what you need to look for in a used car. But what I have seen on a lot of these is they have structural damage, or they are branded lemon buyback cars. And so you just need to look at that. Now, I will credit these companies. They're not trying to hide this. They put the Carfax out there on their website and encourage you to look at it. So they're being honest about the types of cars that they're selling and allowing you to make that decision. But beware that a lot of the cars at these online dealerships do fall into that category. There's a lot that also don't, that could be perfectly good cars. You just don't necessarily know until you do that research, and then, of course, until you actually see it. These companies put a ton of pictures. One of them even has a patented process where they kind of have this really cool 360 view, utilizing that wide angle and 360 camera technology. It's really kind of neat. But online pictures don't show everything. And this is true if you're looking at a used car on any dealership's website. Because of the resolution of photographs that are put online, it's typically limited to 72 dots per inch. And now I'm really geeking out on you guys. You're learning about my prior life in the IT industry. But as a result, they're not really high definition. When you blow them up, they start to get grainy. And so you're not going to be able to see a lot of cosmetic blemishes. I have looked at used cars online myself, and then when I've either gone to look at them myself in person, or I have sent someone, an inspector from the Lemon Squad or somewhere else, to go and physically look at the car and take infinitely detailed, high-resolution pictures for me, I've been like, wow, okay, that car is totally beat up, and you did not see any of that in the pictures. And I'm not saying they photoshopped them or anything else. I'm just saying that digital photos at 72 dots per inch, which is the online standard, are not going to show these things. So the pictures look kind of stylized the way a lot of the technology works. And some regular dealerships do this too with the way their pictures are done. They look really pretty online, but that added stylization also hides a lot of flaws in the cars. So just be aware that the beautiful car that you see online in their photos and what actually shows up on your doorstep may look like two completely different cars, even though they're not. So just be aware of that. And if you end up returning the car, if you reject it, you're not going to get that delivery fee back. The delivery fee is typically non-refundable. If you're in their geographic area and you didn't have to pay the delivery fee in the first place, you may not have to pay a return fee. So keep in mind, though, you are probably paying a few $100 for the privilege of test driving their car. Another thing that they may say to help, try and put your mind at ease that this is a great car is that they will say that their cars are certified. So you can buy their cars, quote, worry-free. Traditional dealerships will do this as well. They will say their cars are certified. And if you've listened to my previous podcasts about certified pre-owned cars, the word certified can mean a couple different things. Certified pre-owned, people typically think that means that it is manufacturer certified. So if you buy a certified pre-owned Toyota or a certified pre-owned BMW, what that means in your mind and what it typically means is that it has, it's at a franchise dealership. It's gone through the certification process and passed the standards set by the manufacturer, and therefore has a decently long or really long manufacturer-backed factory extended warranty on it. This is not what that means at these online car dealerships or at a lot of other traditional car dealerships. They will have their own certification process. So it will be certified according to them and their standards, which may not mean diddly squat. They may say, oh, well, we've got a 150-point inspection. That may be a very good inspection, or it may just be marketing hype, typically using those inspections with, the highest number of points they can possibly claim, makes you think, oh, well, they've looked at so many different things. That is part marketing hype and it's part true. But you need to know, what exactly are they inspecting on that car? What does that checklist look like? And the simple fact that they have that checklist and they put their cars through that checklist does not mean that there's not going to be anything wrong with that car. That's even true with a manufacturer certified pre-owned, but in their case, they're backed up with such a solid warranty that if they have missed something, there's probably a 98% chance that they're going to make good on it and fix it. With these, quote, certified cars, the warranties they put on them are extraordinarily limited. They're very short term. Usually it's, 30 days and just a handful of miles. And it only covers like the major engine and major transmission parts. There's thousands and thousands of other parts on the car that it does not cover that are most likely to cause the problems that you would see in buying a used car. Pretty much it says, we guarantee that for the next 30 days, the engine will not blow up or the transmission will not blow up on you. But other than that, there's a bazillion things, especially with cars today. You've heard me preach about the complexity of cars and all the electronics and the sensors and everything else that can go wrong that are not remotely covered by these warranties. So just don't fall for our cars are, quote, certified, therefore you can buy, quote, worry-free. There is still plenty to worry about. And I appreciate that they do have an inspection process and that they do back up their cars at least a limited amount with these extraordinarily limited warranties. That's better than nothing, but it is in no way ensuring a worry-free used car. So just be sure you know what that warranty is if they do offer it. And a lot of the cars that they sell on these sites are cars that theoretically may still be under the original factory warranty because they may only be 2 or 3 years old and the factory warranty may still be effective on these cars. But don't just assume that the factory warranty is still in play because it looks like the car is still within the 3-year 36,000 miles or 4-year 50,000 miles, whatever it is for that particular brand of car. You need to know exactly when the warranty went into effect because the factory warranty typically starts on the day that the car is purchased and put, quote, in use. So kind of consider that your car's adoption date, and it's good for, 3 years, 36,000 miles or whatever beyond that adoption date. And you need to make sure that that warranty is still in effect, that it hasn't been voided for some reason, like on my brother's Jeep that he bought a few years ago. So what you can do is get the VIN number of the car off the website. Call the manufacturer's customer service number. You can go on, Toyota.com or AudiUSA.com, whatever. Get the customer service phone number for the manufacturer and call up that agent and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying this used car. Can I give you the VIN? And you tell me what date the factory warranty expires on that car, the exact date, and make sure that that warranty is still in effect and it hasn't been voided. They will give you that information. So that's just a little check that you should do with any used car that you're looking to buy, unless it is manufacturer certified pre-owned. Most of these companies will, just like a traditional dealership, also offer, third-party extended warranties that you can purchase for additional dollars, usually a few additional $1,000. The difference is they're not negotiable with these online dealers the way you can negotiate for extended warranties and gap insurance and the other products in the finance office at a traditional dealership. They don't like for you to negotiate those, and they don't want you to know they're negotiable, but they usually are, so you should always negotiate those if you want them. But in this case, those extended warranties, everything on their site is, just like going on to Amazon or whatever, the price is the price. You're not going to be able to negotiate any part of this transaction with them. And there are pros and cons to that, obviously. So what happens? What is the process if you do decide to return one of these cars? What's the big deal? You can return it within that 7-day window if you don't like it, if it has funny smells to it, if it was smoked in, they didn't tell you that, or, if your mechanic finds something that's like, hey, I would not keep this car, it needs $5,000 worth of work just to make it safe to drive. And I have seen that. I had a few years ago someone who ended up becoming a client because she had purchased a car at let's just call it a big box, no haggle used car dealership that gives you 3 days to return the car. So she bought a car from them and she did take it to her mechanic, who did find $5,000 worth of work that it needed. It had a broken bearing in the front differential. The whole underside of the car had been rusted out and then painted over because it was a New York car. Even though it only had 20,000 miles on it, this car was a disaster. All the brake lines were corroded. Honestly, it should not have even passed North Carolina safety inspections, but, those get whitewashed a lot. So she ended up returning it to that big box store within that 3-day window, but boy, did they make it a big hassle for her. They did not want to take that car back, and they argued with her. They called her mechanic a liar. They made it extremely difficult. It took her, she was at the dealership for almost 5 hours forcing them to make good on that 3-day return. And she ended up having to threaten them with bringing in her attorney. So, fortunately, that was just that store and they were being ridiculous. These online companies do a much better job. They're not going to give you a hassle about it because that's such a critical part of their business model, because they know that nobody in their right mind is going to buy a used car that they haven't seen unless there is a way to back out of that transaction should they not be happy with their purchase. So here's how that works. And I actually talked to several of these companies and asked them personally what their process is. I'm not just going off what is on their website. I called them. I spoke to one of their senior people to learn how this process really works. So what you do is you contact them within that window, whatever their window is. If it's 3 days, if it's 7 days, you got to be within that window. Contact them and say, you know what? I don't like the car. I found some problems with it. It smells funny. Or quite frankly, I just don't like it. I want to send it back. What they will do is they will arrange for it to be picked up. And they will either, if you paid cash, once they get the car back and they've inspected it to make sure that you haven't done anything stupid to it, you haven't modified it, you haven't wrecked it, you haven't damaged it in any way, it's in the same condition that it was when they sent it to you, then they will issue you a refund. They will either send you your money back if you paid cash, or they will issue a refund to the bank. If it's one of the banks that they finance with, you did your financing through them, they facilitate that with their banks. They already have that process worked out. If you finance through your bank, then you are going to have to do that legwork to unwind that loan with your bank. Just for kicks and giggles, I called my bank and asked them, so, theoretically, if I did this and then I returned the car, what would the process be to unwind the loan? And the answer I got from the first 3 people I talked to was, I don't know. We've never done that before. So I finally got through to someone that understood what would happen. And they said, yeah, we would just cancel the loan, cancel the contract, and it would be like it never happened, except that it would still have hit your credit. So there could potentially be a negative impact to your credit. They said typically it would just show that you got a loan and you paid it off right away. So there might actually be an upside to your credit, but obviously, as they weren't, people at the credit bureaus, they couldn't legally assure that. They said it might be a negative impact. It might not. We don't actually know. I haven't bothered calling the people at the credit bureaus to ask them because they can't even keep my data secure. So I really don't necessarily trust what they would say. But just know that there would be, some potential negative impacts and just a few extra steps of hassle for you to go through if you didn't like that car. But it's not necessarily the end of the world. And the truth is, most people that are shopping for a used car, quite frankly, are not that diligent about the process. It's kind of funny. They say they're so worried about buying a lemon, yet they don't take the time to do the research and the legwork and the diligence necessary to mitigate that risk and ensure that they have indeed purchased a good quality used car. They just complain about it, but they don't actually do anything about it. And the convenience of not having to spend time tromping through car lots and haggling with car salespeople, that convenience in our society today wins over due diligence and being disciplined about a process. So people that go car shopping for used cars on normal car lots will typically go and they'll find one, ooh, it's pretty, it's shiny, I'm going to buy it. And they never get that pre-purchase inspection. Very, very few car buyers get that pre-purchase inspection. And I have seen, I'm married to a master mechanic and he complains all the time about people coming in to get a post-purchase inspection only to find that, they've bought a lemon or they've bought a car that at least needs quite a bit of work to make it a good, safe car that's going to last them. So these online companies, they're simply catering to those types of car buyers that are not going to do their homework. They know that most people aren't going to get that pre-purchase inspection anyway, so they don't really care. They're fulfilling a need in the marketplace for an easier, hassle-free, relatively hassle-free process that's very different from buying from a traditional car dealer. And I applaud them for that. But if you are shopping for a used car, you know that I'm going to preach. You've got to do your homework. You've got to make sure that you're buying a good quality used car. So if you do decide to go this route and buy from one of these online only companies, here's some things that you need to do. Obviously, look at that Carfax report. Don't just look at, is it clean? Go back and listen to my previous podcast about buying a used car so you know exactly what to look for. I look at literally 30 different pieces of data on a Carfax report, not just, is it, quote, clean? So do your diligence. And once you have scheduled a delivery for that car and you have a window in which they're going to deliver that car, call your mechanic at that point and schedule that pre-purchase inspection. Because what happens is even people that intend to get a pre-purchase inspection, they have all the good intentions in the world of doing their diligence. The car gets there and they're like, oh, it looks great. And then they get busy. Or they call their mechanic and their mechanic is booked up if they have a good mechanic and like, oh, well, we can't get you in for 2 more weeks. So make that appointment ahead of time so that literally as soon as that car arrives and you test drive it and at least passes your cosmetic and initial quality checks, then literally the next day or within the next couple days, you have that appointment with your mechanic so that you make sure you get that inspection done and give you plenty of time to return the car safely within that 7-day window if that is a necessary step. You know, some people buy used cars, willy-nilly, and they get really lucky and they get a really good one. But I have just seen so many cases of people buying a used car and then finding out that they have purchased something that was not of good quality or they have problems with it further down the line because they didn't have a mechanic look at it. So, all right, I'm going to get off my soapbox, but I just want to make sure that, no matter how you choose to purchase a used car, you do your diligence because otherwise you could find yourself the proud owner of a lemon. Folks, I hope this was helpful to you. I promise the next podcast will have better sound because my cool studio will be built out. And until then, drive safely. I'm out of here.
The Straight Shift podcast is copyright LeeAnn Shattuck, The Car Chick, 2017. All views expressed by guest and or co-hosts are those of the guest and or co-hosts, and not necessarily those of LeeAnn Shattuck or The Car Chick.